all the way up until this evening. We start off by talking about the industrial action taking place at Eskom, resulting in, as Eskom claims, escalated levels and stages of load shedding. We're now in level 4, luckily, but we're supposed to be in level 6. Level 6 not ruled out for the weekend. And it seems like a decision has not yet, at least a final decision has not yet been reached between Eskom and the negotiating Labour parties at the bargaining council involved over there. We're going to be speaking very shortly to the two unions involved, NUMSA as well as NUM. We're also going to be speaking to the brand new elected, I guess, unopposed President of the Pan-African Parliament. And we're going to be speaking about, one, the significance and importance of the Pan-African Parliament in the absence of it having any legislative making power. We're going to be speaking about the impact it intends to have. We're going to be speaking about regional unity across the continent. Honorable Chief Fortune Charumbira will be joining us on the show a little bit later on. And then we're going to be talking to the convener, the national convener of the National Liquor Traders Association, Lakin Timane. We're going to be speaking about underage drinking culture in South Africa. I think enough time has passed for us to ask the question, where does social responsibility lie? Why is it that we have, knowingly so, an underage drinking culture in South Africa, yet we don't really speak about it, yet we don't bring it to the fore as it's supposed to be? And there seems to be very little public policy intervention in that space. And importantly, it seems to me that there is an attempt, at least, to subvert that conversation away from social responsibility, but onto the responsibility of government. I think society needs to come together and take responsibility for these things as well. Of course, this show is streaming live on YouTube. As you know, it's streaming live on Facebook and streaming live on Twitter as well. And you can watch us live on any of those platforms. Just search SAfm Radio and you can watch the show live. It's always an honor and a pleasure when people engage with us on any of our live streams across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can listen to us on 104 to 107 nationwide and stream us at safm.co.za. But I'm taking your engagements, any of your phone calls this evening on 011 714 2006. That's the number to dial. I'll repeat it, 011 714 2006 if you want to engage in any of those conversations. We're also taking your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107 0614 104 107. You can tweet me directly at Oliver_speaking on Twitter and Oliver Dickson on Facebook. On the other side of this, we begin the show.
At SAfm Radio and at Oliver_speaking on Twitter. SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. If you're active on social media and love SAfm, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAfm page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAfm, leading the conversation. This week, today, Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m.
And I'm joined this evening to speak about the industrial action taking place at Eskom. I'm joined by Pagamile Hlubi Majela, who's the NUMSA spokesperson, as well as Kangela Baloyi, who's the NUM Energy Sector Coordinator. Pagamile, thank you so much for joining us. Pagamile is joining us over Zoom, and we'll be able to see her very, very shortly. Kangela is joining us over the phone, and we'll be hearing them very, very shortly. Let me start with you, Kangela. Eskom blamed the industrial action protests for the escalated stages of load shedding. Is that a fair characterization of the nature of our load shedding escalation crisis at the moment? Kangela?
Hello, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll start that question again. Eskom Eskom and its management and leadership is blaming the industrial action for the escalated stages of load shedding. Is it a fair characterization for the reason for why we're in stage 6 at the moment?
No, it is not a fair characterization. It is a fact that load shedding did not start last week. We had load shedding maybe from January. We had load shedding. We also had load shedding even days before the industrial action start. We had stage 4.
Yeah.
So it is incorrect to say that it's because of workers. There are many reasons why we have a load shedding.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe outline some of those reasons before we speak about the nature of the industrial action?
Yeah, no, load shedding is with us, and even Eskom confirmed that load shedding is with us and is here to stay, because we don't have enough capacity to meet the demand during peak hours.
Yeah,
in South Africa, and this is caused mainly because of the breakdown of plants. And also that with the renewable wind and solar, during peak hours we normally don't have them producing electricity.
Yeah. Okay, that's succinct enough. Pagamile, I'm gonna come to you. The industrial action was unprotected, which in labor terms means that the striking workers did not have a certificate to protest. Does the union distance itself from the at least does NUMSA distance itself from the unprotected labor action?
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First of all, as you I think you mentioned this a bit earlier, the unions were not involved in calling for a strike. So, of course, that means that the strike was unprotected. However, as unions, we understand fully what workers are going through. We understand what their demands are. We understand that they were provoked by Eskom management, who walked out of wage talks at a very crucial time and collapsed the talks. So I think that's also an important consideration. I would also like to just go back to the question that you asked Comrade Kangela about this issue of load shedding. I think your listeners must recall that in April of this year, the Eskom management actually did a whole presentation to the public where they confirmed that in winter, there would be over 100 days of load shedding. So we must be very clear about the fact that this load shedding, this persistent load shedding that we're experiencing, particularly in winter, Eskom predicted in April. And what we're experiencing is something that they predicted and they knew was coming. Literally days before the protest action, we were already on stage 4. So it should not come as a surprise to anybody, especially anyone who's been living in South Africa in the last 3 years, that today we are at stage 6 load shedding. The unions have been very clear from the day that Andre Tereta was appointed. We even protested. Some of you members of the media mocked us. But unfortunately, our warnings about Andre Tereta and his inability to solve load shedding have been proven correct. And we are now living with that reality.
Can we just maybe sketch out a timeline, if you don't mind, Pagamile, as to when the wage talks began and the condition of labor talks began, when the protests started happening, and where in the process we are now?
If I'm not mistaken, the first round of wage talks would have been towards the end of May, early June. But I stand to be corrected by Comrade Kangela. I'm sure he can clarify. But the point at which ESCOM walked out was on Tuesday. And by Friday, ESCOM had
this past Tuesday?
Told us that, yes, last week Tuesday.
Right.
That's when they collapsed wage talks. And then they announced stage 4 load shedding somewhere in between. It happened around Wednesday when we were at stage 4. And then by Friday, ESCOM announced that workers were protesting. So I think really, it's very disingenuous for anybody to blame workers for this situation. This thing has been a long time coming. ESCOM itself predicted that this would be the case in winter. And I think the minister must be honest and stop misleading the public and stop scapegoating workers. Even the DA called him out on this, saying that it is absolutely absurd that there are people out there blaming workers for stage 6 load shedding when we have been living this reality since Andre de Ruyter took over.
Yeah. Kangela, I want to throw this to you.
Yes.
Give us an indication, or at least give us a sketch out of what it is workers have been asking and what ESCOM has been conceding to, not conceding to, and counter-offering.
Yeah, no, without sounding like we are negotiating through the media, we have 5 issues in the main now.
Sure.
The first issue, which is salary, which wages, percentage salary increase. And then the second issue is the issue of the conditions of service.
Yeah.
And then we have an issue on housing allowance. We have an issue on salary differential, or what we call apartheid wage cap. And yes, those are the main.
That last issue is one that I saw earlier today, and I didn't quite understand it. Explain to us what the apartheid wage cap is.
No, the apartheid wage gap is a salary. It's called salary differential in the Employment Equity Act. It is actually a situation whereby the one race is earning more money than the other, and one gender is earning money than the other, while they are doing the same work. It's almost the same as equal pay for work of the same value, or equal pay for equal valued work.
Yeah. And how long has this been persisting? I mean, this is not the first time unions are negotiating with ESCOM. Why is this only coming up now?
No, this thing is as old as I joined ESCOM, you know. It's very old. But around 2010, we started a campaign against it, and then we went to the Department of Labor. And Department of Labor asked ESCOM to do a salary income differential exercise, and ESCOM confirmed that there is apartheid wage gap in ESCOM.
Yeah.
And they agreed that they're going to start addressing the apartheid wage gap. They did really address it because we had an agreement. I don't remember when exactly. And then they started addressing it. They gave people a salary increase. That those who were at the bottom of their salary scale, they gave them a salary increase. They said it's an exercise that is going to be a continuous exercise.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But when after that first phase, the second phase, they said no, they no longer have money to continue. When they get money, they're going to continue.
Yeah.
But with us, issue of apartheid wage gap is an issue of social justice. It's not something that you can give an excuse of I don't have money. You know, when you are actually discriminating people in the workplace.
Yeah, yeah. Pagabile, what's ESCOM counter offering at the moment?
Look, we are not really in a position where we are going to be going into details on the offer that's on the table. We are engaging on the proposal that ESCOM has put on the table, and we don't want to sort of get into a situation where we are talking about in detail about this and we have not yet engaged our members.
Right.
What we can say is that a proposal has been put on the table. We have, since this morning, been going back and forth with each other on different permutations of how this proposal can be improved upon. Even as I speak to you, we are still there trying to fine-tune it and improve it. And when we are ready to communicate to the media, we will do so.
Yeah. When do you think that might be? How close do you think you guys are to reaching an agreement?
That's a difficult question to answer. I don't know if you're asking me or Comrade Kangela, but...
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you.
Look, we've been engaging, and the engagements have been at least, unlike what happened on Tuesday, where ESCOM was extremely arrogant. There's a slight difference today, because at least we have members of the executive who have a mandate, and it's allowed us to sort of, even as I said, talk about these permutations. Up until last week, Tuesday, the team that was here was not really willing to do that with us to the extent that they've been doing that today. I don't want to say...
Sorry, so it's a different... Am I understanding it correct that a different team is at the negotiation table from ESCOM side today than one that was earlier in the week?
What I mean is that there's more flexibility around the proposals.
Right.
What we had before was just, this is our proposal, take it or leave it, tough. That was the attitude. And that's not really been the case today. And that's why we're saying we're really still in it, trying to find one another.
Yeah. And just maybe a last question to you, Pagamile. What was the last mandate that your members gave you as a non-negotiable line to be drawn at the negotiation table?
I can't tell that to you now, because that would be giving away our fallback position and doing so in the media. I'm only really mandated to tell you what that is once we come together. But what I can say, there are two really burning issues that we must resolve, as far as NUMSA is concerned anyway, before we walk out of here. It's the issue of the wage demand, number one. Number two, it's the issue of the conditions of service, and of course, housing. So it's actually three issues. But the two, I would say, really burning issues are the issue of the across-the-board wage demand and the issue of the conditions of service. And the reason the conditions of service are such a sticking point is because it actually impacts our members, specifically those who are working in power stations, who are field workers. If I can give you an example of how this affects them, if a worker, for example, is living in Mpumalanga and gets called out on a technical issue somewhere in the rural areas, and it takes that person 2 hours to get there, ESCOM will only pay that worker for the work that they actually do, and they won't compensate them fully for the time it took for them to get there and to drive back. In the past, those were things that ESCOM considered and compensated workers for. Ever since they took away those conditions, the impact on our members is that they have seen a real reduction in their overall package, to the extent where a shortfall of 7 or 8 or 9,000 rand in your salary package. And that really is a problem, because if you play that up against the conditions that ordinary people are facing, including our workers, the high fuel costs, the high cost of living, food prices have gone out of control, to have that massive reduction all of a sudden in your salary has a major impact. And so these are some of the things that we have to resolve in this round of negotiations.
Yeah. It seems to be that it is real substantive issues that will impact the cost of the increase on ESCOM's part, at least. Do they continue to make the claim that they don't have the money, that they can't afford this, Kangela?
Yeah, no, it's not just a claim. It's reality for all workers in South Africa. The cost of living is unaffordable now.
No, I mean on the part of ESCOM. Does ESCOM continue to make the claim that they can't afford this?
Oh no, ESCOM. The negotiations today are very productive. To be honest, the atmosphere is different from Tuesday.
What changed?
Maybe is because they've got a new mandate from their principals. Because remember, the minister has announced that he has given them a mandate to come and renegotiate. Remember, ESCOM left the negotiations and referred the case to the CMA, and they told us no, that this was the offer that they were giving then was a final offer. So they were forced back to the negotiation table, and maybe they came back with their tails between their legs to negotiate in good faith.
To yourself, Kangela, as well as to yourself, Phakamile, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate that you brought us into the light about where the negotiation process is right now. It seems, from the optimism in both your sentiments right now, that we're close to a final decision being made, an agreement being signed, and hopefully workers will be back in the field as soon as tomorrow. Phakamile Hlubi Majola, as well as Kangela Baloyi, who's the NUM Energy Sector Coordinator. Really do appreciate your time. On the other side of this, we speak to Lakin Timane, the convener of the National Liquor Traders Association.
SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Oliver Dickson on SAfm.
What do you make of that? Did you listen to the union spokespeople there telling us what the temperature in the room is at the negotiation table between ESCOM striking workers as well as ESCOM management? The number to dial is 011-714-2006. Send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614-104-107. Tweet me, it is at Oliver_speaking. Really would love to hear what you make of what's going on at the moment. But more importantly, though, I think we got an indication now from the unions about why it is disingenuous for ESCOM to blame the protest and the industrial action for the escalated stages of load shedding, given that we were already at stage 4 load shedding before the protest action began. What do you make of that? I would love to hear from you. 011-714-2006. On the other side of this, we'll listen to some of your voice notes and some of your calls. But right now, I want to speak to the convener of the National Liquor Traders Association. Look, the tragedy that happened at Enyobeni Tavern out in East London is a real atrocity and a indictment on society's ability to raise young people, to create a safe environment for young people to exist in. So much so that underage drinking has been going on and going by unabated in this country. Very many young people find themselves hopeless for many reasons in South Africa. We've got a bottomless pit and a confluence of social ills and social issues that creates an environment, or at least push factors, for young people towards alcohol and underage drinking. But it is incumbent on us as a society to pull them back from the precipice of disaster. More than that, it is up to the value chain of people who find themselves in that space to be able to make sure that liquor traders are also on the safe side of what our social agreement is, at least our social contract, with regards to some of these license conditions are. Lucky Ndimane joins me to have this conversation. Lucky, I want to start here, and thank you so much for your time this evening. I want to start here, and maybe we need to do the foundational work of explaining what a liquor trader is, what a liquor trader is not, how a liquor trader gets a license, and what the license conditions typically are. I'm not sure that they differ. Maybe they do differ. I've never seen one of these. But speak to us about that.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Firstly, I would like to continue to send our condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones at the Enyobeni Tavern. This continues to be an issue that pains us, that hurts us. But in the main, it embarrasses us that one of us decided, to commit acts of what we call mass murder to the kids who had no business being in a tavern. But coming back to your question, because we have 9 provinces in the country, it lends itself then that we have 9 different liquor laws, meaning that each and every province in the country has a liquor authority that regulates the trading of alcohol in that specific province. But there are 2 types of liquor license in the main. One is on consumption, where people drink while seated, and there's no option of taking the alcohol home like your restaurants and your taverns. And the second type of liquor license is that of off-premise, which will be a retailer like your Tops, Ultra Liquors, Liquor City, and so forth. And then over and above the fact that the liquor boards regulate the licenses, you also have the municipalities with their bylaws. I want to take us straight to the example of Enyobeni. Enyobeni's license allowed it to open 10 a.m. in the morning and close at 2 a.m. But the license was extended by the municipality there to close at 4 a.m. So the municipality then has more power to extend the trading conditions of a license holder. So those are the nuances that we get in terms of liquor license. If you ask us what is our view in terms whether it makes sense to have 9 different liquor laws, we feel that it is not. You cannot have one country and have 9 different liquor laws. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But also, let me bring us back to the Eastern Cape. In East London alone, we have 1,200 liquor traders and only 1 inspector. That person is in charge of ensuring that there is compliance across all liquor traders in East London. That's unacceptable. Where is the money that we're paying for license renewal going if you only have 1 inspector in that area, for example?
Yeah. I mean, you're making the example that Nelson Mandela made before 2000, and you lost the argument. Because the court said that we're not a federal state, and therefore provinces should have the ability to dictate liquor license conditions and be the dispensing body for liquor licenses. If you are to make the argument that it makes no sense to have a disintegrated, fragmented liquor operating environment, liquor trading operating environment, what then is the solution to making sure that there's uniformity? Because it's not going to happen that provinces no longer have that power. The Constitutional Court long decided on that. What then is the alternative approach to making sure that there's a sense of uniformity?
We are on record as admitting that as a country we have a problem of irresponsible use of alcohol. And this just cuts across. It's not a provincial matter. It's a national matter. As a country, we do not have a single strategy to deal with alcohol abuse. I'm talking from a government level. If we have one liquor law that governs the sale of liquor across the country, being under one competent body, we should be able to draft such a strategy where we're able to tackle the issue of alcohol in the country, as it were. We know that there are issues that give rise to people finding themselves abusing alcohol. There are societal ills in the country that lends themselves to people abusing alcohol. And this is the matter that we cannot afford anymore to sweep under the carpet. We need to be able to address this. And we need to accept as liquor traders that the solution not only lies with us, but lies with the communities under which we operate in. If you look at a tavern, and you ask this question correctly at the start of this interview, as to what is a tavern. So a tavern by nature is an outlet that sells alcohol for all consumption, situated right in the middle of the township, right in our communities. So this is not a place that you find in a business zone, but this is someone who operates being a neighbor for Obabu Ntimane, being a neighbor for Obabu's Todd. So this is someone whose conduct will have a direct impact on the people next door to him. So this is a very sensitive business, hence it requires a delicate nature of conduct that we're able to manage the relationship between the tavern owner and the communities around him. If you look back at about 10 or even 15 years ago, liquor traders assumed the role of being leaders in their society. We were viewed as people that knew what was happening around the community, and we actually worked very closely with the police to be able to share some of the insights around crimes that were taken out in our place. I feel that we are losing that clout of being leaders in our society, and I think the fact that a tavern resulted in a test of 21 people really is an indictment on the tavern sector, and this is something that we need to change as soon as possible.
The community argues that it's not an isolated incident, that there are children, literally children, in a tavern. It happens across the board, across the country, whether in licensed taverns or unlicensed. But the point is, it's a prevalent problem in our society. You say government has not a single strategy to tackle harmful consumption, but harmful consumption is one thing. Unlawful consumption is another. And what we're speaking about here is unlawful consumption. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that children are not in taverns? I can say parents, but surely liquor traders carry a level of responsibility here. And when they break the law, those licenses should be revoked. That surely doesn't happen often enough.
Look, I agree with assessment, 100%. No excuses given there. The issue of underage drinking happens across the country. We cannot sit here and lie about it and try to paint the tavern sector as being wholly in that regard. This is the issue that we know happens, but it's the issue that is perpetuated by both tavern owners as well as the people that are sending these kids to go and buy alcohol on their behalf. But I think the worrying trend is then when you have a 13-year-old being able to sit down and buy liquor and being served at a tavern. I never thought in a million years I'll have to talk about a 13-year-old having died at a tavern in one sentence. 13-year-old in a tavern should not be a conversation that we're able to have, freely as a country. It's unacceptable, totally unacceptable. But as I've alluded to earlier, the tavern owners bears the most responsibility in terms of managing the issue of underage.
Right. So let me ask you this then, Lakina, and I'm sorry to cut you short here. Not that you have a constitutional mandate to do this. I mean, you're pretty much like an NPO of sorts, right? But when you convene tavern owners across the country, do you speak about ethical trading?
We actually run programs that are supported by Distel, Heineken, and SAB on responsible trading of alcohol. We've run this across during COVID-19 because we understood then that in order for us to retain our right to trade in the midst of a pandemic, we need to trade responsibly. Hence, we ran with the responsible trader programs across the country. And our main
I want to make another distinction here. You're speaking about responsible trading, and that's one thing on the one hand, right? That's to say, when you see somebody is already way too drunk to be having any more alcohol, do not sell them more alcohol. Make sure that when alcohol is consumed, it is in an environment that is safe, that doesn't escalate into violence and deteriorate into chaos. That is what responsible trading is. I'm asking specifically about ethical trading. That's a different thing. That speaks to not breaking the law, not violating the social contract, and not allowing for moral decay to be the bedrock of your business. In other words, not selling alcohol to children.
I think if you look at the regulations that govern the trading of alcohol in the country, it is designed in a way that it lends itself to outlet owners being able to trade ethically if they're able to comply with that. But I think it is fair to say we have not seen a lot of that in the country. In my travel, I do pick up, signs of a lapse in compliance amongst our liquor traders who are putting the profits ahead of the lives of our people, and in this instance, the lives of the kids.
How do we change that?
No business being
How do we change that?
There's no silver bullet for it, except collaboration with civil society. Even church leaders, need to come on board. Traditional leaders need to come on board to be able to tackle this. Like in the Eastern Cape example, for example, we got a scenario where it is said that if you have gone to initiation, now you are a man, you can drink alcohol.
Yeah.
We need to be able to call that out and say, it cannot be allowed to happen that if you have been to initiation at 15 years, and we fully respect the passage rights of those kids into moving into boys, but it does not give you an allowance or an opportunity to purchase alcohol on the basis that you have now gone through the initiation rights. Yeah. The legal drinking age in South Africa started 18 years. So we need to be able to have those honest conversations in our community so that, we block this appetite that seems to exist for kids to think that in a tavern is a place for entertainment for them, which is not.
And how often do these let's call it community-based stakeholder engagements happen between community leaders, between ward councillors, between traditional leadership, between schools and teachers on the one end and churches on the other hand, with liquor traders? Do we have an environment that lends itself to those conversations happening often enough and in high enough of volume for it to have an impact?
No, it is not happening. And I'm the first to admit. And that needs to change. I think the issue in Enyobeni, where there's been 2 complaints about the tavern, to law enforcement officials, and no action was taken, it points to a situation where, there isn't any connect between law enforcement as well as communities. Because had the law enforcement there reacted when communities raised an issue of Enyobeni, things will not have turned out the way they did.
Yeah.
So I feel that there is a lot of room for us to engage more with our, community stakeholders to be able to avoid a similar instance from happening. And we know now that, there are other taverns that are still continuing, as I'm speaking to you today, to serve to underage.
Yeah.
And we're saying to law enforcement officials, those need to be closed down. Those licenses need to be revoked.
Yeah. Just the last one, Lucky. It was concerning to me that you mentioned that there's only one inspector in that area. Have you engaged by any chance the Eastern Cape Liquor Board, and have they given justification for why that's the case?
We have not engaged with them, but what they have put on record as to why they have one inspector is that they don't have the budget to be able to have more inspectors in the area. And it's on record from their side.
Do you, by any chance, and again, I'm shooting in the dark here, know the ratio nationally for inspector to liquor outlets in the country? What's the ratio between one inspector to how many liquor outlets they inspect?
No, I do not know, because you've got 9 different liquor authorities. So it's a question of then having to gather that information from the respective liquor authorities. As it stands now, I have no idea. I have no clue.
Yeah, is there any effort from anyone anywhere in the industry to make sure that such information and data is being gathered?
I think if you look at the competency that governs the inspectors, that is the preserve of government, which is the liquor authorities. So they should be able to provide that information. But I agree with you that we should be able to also be proactive and demand to know that information. And that is certainly something that we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, because if the ratio is low, we need to put pressure on government to make sure that it's a ratio that makes sense, so that we can have more inspections happening and making sure that more and more liquor traders lose their licenses. And just lastly, Lucky, and I mean, I've heard you speak on this before in the past, and it's a very important issue here. How many operating taverns in the country are unlicensed?
So if it is unlicensed, it would not be called a tavern, but it will be called a shebeen.
Okay.
With the exception of Gauteng, where there's a special dispensation with people that have got permits to allow them to sell alcohol, and those are called shebeen permit holders. But as a number, we have about 39,000 taverns in the country, and give or take between 135,000 to 150,000 shebeens. So we have more unlicensed outlets in the country than we have the licensed one. Hence, we are pushing for formalization campaign to say those that qualify to have licenses must be able to get licenses, but those that do not comply must lose their licenses immediately.
Thank you so much for your time, Lucky Ndimane. I really do appreciate it. Very insightful there. And once again, all the best with the work you do in the industry and in the environment, making sure that we don't have a repeat of what happened in the Eastern Cape.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
That's Lucky Ndimane, the convener of the National Liquor Traders Association. Let's take some of your calls on 011-714-2006. On the other side of this, we're going to be speaking to Honorable Chief Fortune Charumbira, the newly elected president of the Pan-African Parliament.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAfm 105 FM in Mokopane.
This week, today, Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m.
Taking some of your calls over there. Jacques out in Kwadukuza. Good evening.
Good evening, Oliver. How are you?
I'm fantastic, so go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to tell the beautiful lady that took my call and phoned me back, thank you so much. And
yes, her name is Lesiro. She's indeed very lovely and beautiful.
That's true. I can't tell you. The voice sounds sexy over the phone as well. I'd just like to tell you, thank you so much for the good job.
She's married, just so you know.
The whole team on SAfm does. In connection with the 2 people that you had talking about, or the union members that were talking about Eskom, all I have to say is that this first complaint about the inequities, the apartheid system in terms of how they measure their salaries, I'd like to say that he did mention that it came from 2010, and then he blames the data, which is something I don't understand because it's very big gap between that. And the other thing is that if the load shedding goes down in terms of it goes down to a stage 2 or a stage 1 and no load shedding at all, when they come back to work, that would indicate that they did sabotage Eskom in some way or the other in terms of their power stations or the infrastructure.
Or there's also the possibility that, you know, that because they're not at work, not because they sabotaged or deliberately, messed up the material or messed up the power stations.
True, but I'm saying that could be true, but I'm saying that isn't that a little bit of a self-serving interest in terms of why couldn't you go on a go slow instead of blocking everything? I mean, there's 60 million people that need employment, that need to be, come home to a warm plate of food. I'm sitting and traveling in traffic right now. Unfortunately enough, there is no load shedding at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I tried to do that a little bit earlier, and it took me 20 minutes to come out of a town that doesn't even have 200,000 people on 4 robots.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, I can only imagine what Joburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, Durban, all these other places. And if there was the case in terms of an emergency that we are literally transporting a person that is now ill or that's going to pass away, are we going to now say, okay, no, this person's interest or salary is important? Yes, it is important, but isn't it urgent or serious that this other person needs to get to the hospital in time and that we don't lose any lives on that matter?
I mean, that is a debate we need to have about the declaration and classification of Eskom employees as critical staff. But that obviously impacts what the collective bargaining process looks like. And that certainly is an important conversation to have. Jock, thank you so much for your call, man. Really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You too and your team, all the best and have a wonderful weekend. Let's hope we get rid of this load shedding right now.
Same to you, sir. On the other side of this, we speak to the brand new president of the Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Fortune Charumbira.
Oliver Dickson on SAfm.
President, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on This Week Today at SAfm. Really, it's an honor to speak to you. It's an honor to have you on the show. Look, the Pan-African Parliament has been marred by a wide variety and a wide array of issues, some of which include disunity amongst the regions across Africa, right? So we can speak about the Anglo-Saxon countries versus the Francophone countries that have been going on. Some of the issues also have to do with not just language, right? Because that was fundamentally a language one, but also has to do with the view some countries have had on some critical policies, such as the rotation policy for leadership at the Pan-African Parliament. But before we go into any of the detail around that, and those details do matter, and before we go speaking about your vision during your term of office as the president of the Pan-African Parliament, because that too matters, I want us to start with the significance of the Pan-African Parliament. Before I give you an opportunity to answer that question for me, let's take a quick break.
SAfm. Prime time all day long.
Momentum believes that your will should be done your way. That's why we created Momentum Life Estate Provider Benefit, a comprehensive solution that includes a professionally drafted will and provides for estate administration costs, liabilities and taxes. Ensure that your family receives exactly what you will to them. Visit momentum.coza or contact your financial advisor. Momentum, here for your journey to success. T's and C's apply. Momentum's an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
This Week Today with Oliver Dickson.
We just have a technical issue at the moment connecting to Honorable Chief Fortune Charumbira, who will be joining us very, very shortly, and we'll be speaking about a variety of these issues. They're just running late a little bit, and hopefully they'll be joining us as we sort out that technical issue. But we are taking your calls on 011 714 2006, and we are taking your voice notes on 0614 104 107. Tweet me at Oliver_speaking on Twitter, Oliver Dickson on Facebook. Chief Fortune Charumbira, thank you so much for your time this evening. Firstly, let's start you. Congratulations on your nomination and election as the new president of the Pan-African Parliament. Many people aren't familiar with the body, right? And many people are confused about what the body does and what it's meant to achieve. So let's start there. What is the significance to the African continent of the Pan-African Parliament?
Thank you. A parliament in any governance system, first of all, is meant to be the voice of the people. It is the channel through which people's voices, people's views are taken to a forum to comment on what an executive does. In this case, the union, the AU itself, spends, as you know, hundreds and millions of dollars every year. The monies that are contributed by member states. Member states every year contribute millions to the AU for various activities and programs.
Yeah.
Parliament is meant to follow and see whether we are applying those resources with efficiency and effectiveness.
Am I understanding you right?
Driving any benefit out of that.
Yeah. Am I understanding you right then? We can imagine the Pan-African Parliament to be a board of directors, really, for its member states, looking at governance related to the resources that is being made available to the African Union.
Yes, but that's one aspect.
What are the other aspects?
The other aspects are that for those resources to be applied effectively, you need a conducive environment. And it's unfortunate that on the continent we have conflicts everywhere, wars everywhere. So as you are aware, in the last 2 years with the theme of silencing the guns. So no guns firing on the continent, it is not possible to undertake meaningful development.
Yeah. So
that's one aspect of what Pan-African Parliament should do, ensure that we have peace and stability on the continent.
Is the Pan-African Parliament in that value chain, is it a accountability mechanism for the African Union? And if that's the case, it's not just about resources, it's also just about mandate and vision, making sure that the African Union does what it is supposed to be doing. Is it an accountability body on the one end? And secondly, what is the African Union meant to be doing, and how is the Pan-African Parliament enforcing that?
Thank you. That's the core business of PAP, because it's supposed to follow on the programs that the AU is undertaking. First of all, inquire whether those resources are being applied to the appropriate areas. That is, the design and the choice and the priorities of the continent, or the AU. It's an issue that PAP itself has to interrogate, getting information from the citizens. Is the union activities really pointed to the aspirations of our citizens on the continent? That's one area. The next, if they are, the issue of monitoring and oversighting the implementation, all the good pronouncements about Ingadem or Agenda 2063, the role of Pan-African Parliament is to make sure that those programs, as pronounced, are in fact implemented. If they are implemented, are they moving according to plan? Are there areas that the people are saying, look, this project is just a white elephant. The people view that let's not continue pouring money into those areas.
And let's go then to this. What is your vision as the newly elected president of the Pan-African Parliament for the Pan-African Parliament and its role in relation to the African Union? What should we expect from you in your term of office?
Is to transform the Pan-African Parliament so that the citizens of this continent look to our parliament in addressing issues that confront this continent. All issues, think of anything, in whichever sector, the agriculture, talk of trade migration, talk of poverty, talk of areas like health, education. The people of Africa should look to the continent as to the parliament as a parliament that pushes the agenda and moves the continent forward. Because the parliament will be then, through the other organs like the Assembly of Heads of State, we should make sound, acceptable, practical recommendations as an advisory parliament. We're advisory. So our advice should be the advice that the continent looks to in moving the continent forward, that we talk to the people's wishes and the will of the people on the continent. That's why we undertake programs like even election observation missions. These are meant to ensure that there is stability through good practice of democracy on the continent, that the elections are held free and fair, so that we minimize cases of unconstitutional governments arising out of disputed democratic processes.
And just finally, the Pan-African Parliament seems to be very far from the people. How do we get it closer to the people?
That is one of our great challenges. It is our committee system. As you are aware, we have 11 committees. These committees...
No, I actually was not aware, but now I am.
Thank you. These committees focus on various areas. And in our work plans, always we intend to go out, fact-finding missions, investigative missions on issues to do with either COVID-19, for example. You want our Committee on Health to go out to the grassroots and see how the AU's programs have been applied, including even member states' programs. You want the Committee on Agriculture, and this year we are aware that the emphasis is on issues of food security. Our Agriculture Committee should be able to go out there to the grassroots, to the village, to the townships, and interact with the grassroots, and see that the people are in fact moving and are aware of what the AU is doing. It is true that the PAP has not been very visible, mainly because our committees have not been as active as we would desire. Sometimes it's a question of resources, but I am not a person that likes complaining about resources. It's better you achieve 80% from a 20% allocation. So within the resource constraints, our committees should be able to engage with the grassroots in various ways, get the views of the people, and also do an oversight role. We don't make laws, but we make model laws. So in areas where we see there are gaps, we propose a model law, like in terms of, like in trade, in certain even policing now, which you've done. We did one for pharmaceuticals. Then we ask the member states to be able to align some of their laws or policies with our model law from Pan-African Parliament.
Yeah, on a different day, I want us to continue this conversation to speak about what that alignment looks like, because that's very important. If you're going to be an advisory body doing all of this epistemological work around what a good continent looks like, the alignment to that by member states is critically important and necessary. Honorable Fortune Charumbira, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it, and all the best with your term of office.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this week today. With me, Oliver Dickson, it's been an honor and a pleasure being in your company. I'm back with you on the show next week as we continue to engage. But across the week, do engage with me. Tweet me at Oliver_speaking. You can find me on Facebook. It is Oliver Dickson over there. From myself and Lisero, thank you so much for indulging us this evening. It's a minute after 9 o'clock. Tabiso Musiwa will be joining you all the way from Durban this evening. But right now, it's time for your news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
In our top stories at this hour, disciplinary action against striking Eskom workers and iPad on the fence on Phala Phala investigation. Good evening, I'm Zoleka Kotashi. Eskom says it plans to take disciplinary action against workers who embarked on an illegal strike at various power stations. Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter says if workers fail to heed the call of their union leadership to return to work, then the country will be